Okay, it is time for the fourth part of my Jason Statham-athon, or Statham-marathon. Yeah, Statham-athon. Trust me, it's much harder to say than you think it is. Crank 1 and Crank 2, or Crank High Voltage, depending on if they decide to include the number or not. Now, I will be using some dialogue from the movie, so bear in mind, it's always very rough, and I try to keep things profanity-free. So, just bear that in mind. In the first Crank, Jason Statham is Chef Chelios. You'll hear that name probably 100 times. Normally with like, fuck you, Chef Chelios, and you hear that a lot. This movie's chock full of profanity. But anyways, he wakes up and he's been drugged. By who? By the main villain of the movie. I forget his name currently. And essentially, he needs to keep his adrenaline up and running, or else he's going to die. I mean, that is the premise of the movie. It's him doing crazy things, keep his adrenaline up and running, to try to get to, the main villain and try to get the cure for the. Oh man, I gotta say this like some wicked Chinese shit, some synthetic stuff. And one of the first things he does is, he goes home with his buddies. He then does a line of crack off of the floor of a bathroom at a dive bar. This is like the opening 3 minutes of the movie. Then he's like, it's not working. What do I need to do? I need to beat some N-word ass. Now you see, I don't want to use that word at all. And then he gets in a giant massive fight with a bar full of black people. He was up and running. So it's that crazy car chase scenes. He does have sex with his girlfriend in public. She forced fellatio while he's driving. Doesn't let him finish, because that will make his adrenaline go down lower. He's got it with his doctor the whole time, who is Dwight Yoakam, who without a hat is bald. I mean, I'm losing some, but Dwight Yoakam is bald. And of course, he finds a way to use essentially what these for kidney dialysis to constantly pump adrenaline through his system. Of course, that gets taken off of him, and then that leads to the giant climactic fight sequence on a helicopter. And of course, he goes falling to his death. Has enough time, though, to get out his cell phone, call his girlfriend, leave a voicemail message, and then hit the roof of a car. And you know what? That's it. He's done. He's dead. It is an over-the-top action flick. And I'll be honest, I saw absolutely no way you could do a sequel to this movie. And apparently they found the best way to do a sequel is to give him an artificial heart that requires electricity to keep it going. So, I mentioned before I have a special guest with this one. So, I'll bring her in now. This is actually my wife.
Hello.
So, honey, what'd you think of Crank 2?
This is by far the worst movie I have ever seen. Definitely not a date movie. The plot makes no sense whatsoever and has so many useless scenes that I don't even know where to start.
So this is worse than, what was it, Never Surrender? That was the
Yes.
UFC movie with the random second
Yes.
fighting montage? Okay.
Yeah, I would say worse than Never Surrender.
Okay, what about Yeti?
I would watch Yeti before I would watch this movie again.
You'd actually rather watch Yeti?
Yes.
She'd rather watch a sci-fi original movie than watch Crank High Voltage. So, if you want to stick around, I'll keep doing the interview with you. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So, I'm going to try to go through some of the plot points of this movie. Okay, he bounced off the hood of the car. He didn't die. Instead, he gets snow shoveled off the road and gets taken in by some organ harvesters. And they plan on harvesting all of his organs, even his penis. And every time they do anything related to his genitalia, it's the sound of a horse. Therefore, denoting he has very large genitalia. And of
Which
course,
is not necessary. But
so, when he finally comes to, and then they realize he has a battery pack attached to him, because all artificial hearts have a huge external battery pack on them, looks like football, with indicator lights on them. And of course he calls Dwight Yoakam, who at this point in time I think is rubbing an ice cube on a nasty black hooker's butt.
Another scene that's not needed.
No, actually, he uses the hooker later on.
That is true.
To get the heart back. So
Yes.
probably running across her butt, probably not needed.
No.
But it at least introduced the character beforehand. But anyways.
Lets you know how sleazy he really is. And she. Anyway.
Yeah. So, as he's trying to get, essentially, his heart back, it's just the random, I have to keep electricity going through my body the whole time. Whether it's attach a cable to his nipple and having the guy rev an engine, sticking his finger.
Why didn't he have any burn marks afterwards, anyway?
Sticking his finger in the socket of a car while driving it, even static electricity, which of course led to the scene in the trailer where he is kind of dry humping an old lady. And of course he runs into his girlfriend again, which leads to a massive gunfight in a strip club. Stripper gets shot through the boobs, and you watch silicone just leak out from both sides. Funny in one of those severely over-the-top moments, but then again, someone who has to electrocute themselves repeatedly or else he's going to die doesn't make much sense either. There's also apparently a porn star strike going on at the time.
Again, another useless scene.
Because, after he picks up some of the Asian hookers, one of them is Bai Ling. If you know who she is, she can't act at all. In this movie, that she doesn't appear to act that much either. So after they get through the porn star strike, I really have no idea why that's in the movie, he eventually gets to the person who he thinks has his heart, which leads to him grabbing a hold of a high voltage, like electrical system. And that's when it becomes like a Power Rangers fight, because they're two giant people fighting, and they're caricatures. I have no idea. Really no idea what's going on. He wins, find out that his heart's not in the box. His heart is inside David Carradine. Ironically, this is one of his last movies, which is always kind of sad. So David Carradine essentially is playing the super horny Asian drug lord, for lack of better terminology. He actually ends up getting kidnapped because apparently he likes black hookers, and Dwight Yoakam has got a black hooker. That's a lot of coincidence to find that one black hooker that happens to know Dwight Yoakam. So, Statham survives, more or less taking like the power grid into his body. He eventually finds his way. I can't forget the fact that he had sex with his girlfriend while there was a horse race going on. In a super over-the-top sex. Like, she's like a wheelbarrow in some scenes. And again, they show horse genitalia.
Again, no need for the scene.
The director must like horse genitalia. I don't know.
It doesn't add to the plot whatsoever. There is no plot, so I guess there's nothing to add to it.
Oh, no. The plot's just super simple. He just needs to keep electrically charged.
Mm-hmm.
And get his heart back. But then he actually gets to the point where all the individual subplots come to a head. So the bizarre Latino homosexual gang leader who has Tourette's syndrome, Bai Ling and all the Asian hookers, the Asian drug lord, and the Latinos from the first one, all this giant gun sequence at the end. Oh, and the guy he killed at the end of the first one, his head is alive in an aquarium full of what looks like urine, and he talks through a speaking set. So
again, very unrealistic.
So Statham, running low on juice, climbs up an electrical pole, and then grabs a hold of essentially the power supply you see on top of the electrical pole. He is so juiced that he is on fire. And then it goes into like some weird, trippy sequence where he thinks Bai Ling is actually his girlfriend and he's smart. He hugs her, she dies, because, when a dude's on fire hugging you, you tend to die from it. And of course it ends with crispy Jason Statham getting his heart put back into him. Could they do a third one? I didn't think they could do a second one, and I'll be honest. After having seen the second one, it was as I would say it is. Yeah, probably it is the most over-the-top action I've ever seen. The plot is literally one sentence. It's I need to be electrically charged. The first one, I need to keep my adrenaline going. Unless the third one is I have to keep on drinking whiskey, I have no idea what you do for the third one. So, up next week, the two Jet Li movies, The One and War.